Hi, I'm Sala, and in this video we will continue with our analysis of band-limited stochastic processes, Gaussian processes in particular, which have this power spectral density and the covariance function, covariance kernel, given by the sin C function, sinus cardinal, and we will show that the standard Gaussian process regression formulae, when applied to this covariance and power spectral density, will end up producing a reconstruction in mean and confidence interval so that the width of the confidence interval tends to zero as more and more samples are gathered, and that shrinking of the width of the confidence interval is the statistical version of Shannon sampling theorem. We had this set of points, 601 of them. We had a prior covariance matrix with some finite precision regularization terms. Realizations were like this, and the covariance matrix had only 34 non-zero eigenvalues. So the 600 samples can be constructed with 34 random numbers. But now we will turn to the actual setting in which Shannon sampling theorem can be stated. In this line of code, we will simulate that, for instance, we will sample from -9 to 9 every second. So this will be the points, the time instance in which we get samples, and, well, we'll sample an arbitrary function, let's say, but of course, as there are some nonlinearities and whatever, then maybe this function has not finite bandwidth. So we'll later on do some examples with actual sinusoidal signals with a given frequency. But for the moment being, we'll just imagine this. And in fact, this is not in accordance with the Gaussian process theory, in the sense that the samples I should have should be samples from the prior in here, this kind of realizations, because, we are in a statistical setup. So we are putting a deterministic function in here to generate the samples, but instead of getting these samples evaluating f at the sampling points and adding some measurement noise with standard deviation given by 2 times 10 to the minus 5, very small. Well, the thing is that instead of doing this f should be a subset of this random thing every second in order to be 100% aligned with the theory, because there is no true function in the statistical setting but an underlying random function stochastic process. But okay, let's see how we reconstruct this stuff, and if we don't reconstruct it perfectly, it means that this was not a band-limited signal. But, we get this measurement noise, standard deviation, variance, these samples. This would be the true reconstruction of my deterministic function. So, well, the thing is that with this x sample and y sample, we need to do the reconstruction. Which formulas will be used for reconstruction? Well, standard, posterior, Gaussian process regression, Gaussian process estimation, as follows. If we look at Wikipedia, we have this formula for the posterior conditional inference on multivariate Gaussians, where covariance matrix is conceptually separated into 2 groups of variables. Group 1 refers to the covariance of the test points in which I wish to make a prediction, and group 2 is the set of points in which I have a measurement. So I wish to predict variables x1 conditioned to knowing that measurements of x2 have been a, let's say. That Gaussian prediction formula says that the conditional is a normal with this mean and this posterior variance. In our case, sigma 11 will be a 600 times 600 matrix of covariance as test points. Sigma 2 will be the covariance at the samples I have, and then I need to compute this covariance, and then this Gaussian posterior conditional formulae in the context of Gaussian stochastic processes are called Gaussian process regression, but are just standard statistical stuff. So, well, let's particularize in our code to our variables and the particular problem setting. So, sigma 11 will be this covariance between test points. Sigma 22 will be this covariance between sample points with the same kernel, and, well, as sample points are separated 1 unit, then they are independent, they have zero covariance, so the information covariance is just a diagonal identity matrix. Well, as we have some measurement noise, we'll need to regularize this TMP. And also, apart from these k samples, which will be sigma 22 in here, sigma 12 will be the covariance between test points to predict and sampling points. So this line will be the one that computes that required covariance. Then, adding this noise variance to the information variance, I get this TMP, but okay, as this noise variance is extremely small, because Shannon theorem does not have measurement noise there, so the Gaussian process regression formulae are actually more powerful than Shannon theorem, but okay, we will approach Shannon's setup with a very, very small noise variance, so this TMP will be the identity plus something in the 10th decimal figure, but okay, it's just identity in theory. So, as the inverse appears twice, I just will compute it once and store it in a temporary variable, which I call cache inverse. And well, the core formulas that will end up being Shannon sampling theorem are these two lines, covariance times inverse of information times samples, which for zero mean stuff is this formula here, and the second one, test covariance minus test and samples covariance inverse of information and same transposed. Well, that second line will be this line here. So we are just putting this mean and variance posterior in here, and then we'll later on discuss what happens with the number of samples get to infinity, whatever, but now let us just see what this mean and variance prediction mean. I have an auxiliary function that just plots the predicted mean plus minus 1.96 standard deviation, so it's the 95% confidence interval of a Gaussian distribution. So with that plotting, I feed with the predicted mean and variance that plot with confidence interval stuff, and then I get, for instance, this prediction. We have the mean prediction in blue and confidence interval in dashed red lines, and well, we see that the true function seems to lie inside the 95% confidence interval. The plus minus 2, well, plus minus 196 is the prior, because my time series had stationary variance 1, but then if I get the samples, I reduce the uncertainty. So this is a standard Gaussian process regression, and I can add more or less measurement noise, more or less samples. Samples need not be at integer place, and Gaussian process regression formulae are more general than regularly sampled signals with zero measurement noise that Shannon sampling theorem considers. But okay, if we restrict to that thing and we add a lot of samples, instead of 9, I put 700, then my confidence interval width shrinks a lot, and ultimately it will be 0. Why? Well, let us discuss, with a little help from the web, why that happens. So let us consider that with samples at capital N integer points, I wish to predict the signal at time equal lowercase x, being x any abscissa point in the middle of my samples. Then, as the covariance between x and n is the sin c of the distance, the mean prediction will be the sin c of the distance covariance times the inverse of the information variance, which was 1, so 1 minus 1 is just 1, times the sample value. That will be the mean prediction. And the residual covariance, the mathematical expectation of this increment between the actual y and its prediction squared, well, will be 1 minus covariance times inverse of information variance times covariance, which ends up being 1 minus the sin c formula squared. Good. If I had, instead of this sample at one particular n, a couple of samples at n1, n2, then this will be the new prediction. Just covariance between the test point and the two sample points will be a 1 times 2 matrix with these two sin c of the respective distance, inverse of the information variance, and then I will multiply by the samples I took at n1 and n2, and then doing the covariance stuff will be covariance identity inverse identity covariance transposed. I will have 1 minus this sin c x minus n whatever samples squared. So the thing is that when I have a lot of samples at all integers, then this sum, which is the explained variance, will tend to 1, so the unexplained variance, this residual posterior variance, will tend to 0. How is it possible that? Well, the contribution of sample n, this is sin c of x minus n, which is, inside we multiply by pi in order to compute this thing, but the integer number of pi, this means that if n is even, then the difference with the sign of px will be a multiple of 2 pi, then it will be exactly the same sinus, and if n is odd, then it will be the sign of points separated 180 degrees, so it will be opposite sign, but in the variance formula it is squared, so this sin c ends up being the sinus of pi x squared divided by pi squared and the distance squared. So this is the explained variance at instant lowercase x when I get information from a sample at instant uppercase n. Then I need to sum these for all integer n, and well, this is the key result, the statistical version of sample theorem. The sum of that explained variance for all integer n is 1, so 1 minus 1 gets to 0. How do I prove that? Well, I wrote a for loop to prove it numerically, and we see that the unexplained variance shrinks to 0 as we increase the number of samples in the code we have explained a couple of minutes ago. But well, there are many smart people there, and so if I type this expression into Wolfram Alpha, let's say, that knows more mathematics than I do, then these guys tell me that that summation I wish to compute is 1 for non-integer x. So I mean at integer x I have a sample, so I know the value of the function there, and for non-integer x the explained variance is 1, so if I have samples at all the integers, the residual variance tends to 0, and this is the key result, the statistical version of Shannon sampling theorem. So we achieved our main goal. We indeed proved, well, we did not, Wolfram alpha proved this result, that the explained variance tends to 100%. So the width of the confidence interval when I have an infinite number of samples and I reconstruct the signal shrinks to 0. So for instance, if I now check with this band limited signal of more or less half the Nyquist frequency, then I get this nice reconstruction. And of course, if frequency components are smaller than pi, say 0.99 pi, then Gaussian process regression formulae give me a perfect reconstruction of the sinusoidal with a very small uncertainty width of the posterior variance. But of course, if I do not have an infinite number of samples, and I have only 35, let's say, then reconstruction is not perfect. And in fact, the sinusoidal gets out of the confidence interval. But, Shannon theorem says that we still have some long-term effects to add, and ultimately we will perfectly fit my high-frequency sinusoidal with an infinite number of samples. Of course, we also have aliasing in the sense that if my frequency is above pi radians, then reconstruction formula thinks that this came from a lower frequency signal, and in fact, instead of 1.4 pi, the reconstructed signal is of 1.4 pi minus 2 pi, so minus 0.6 radians per second, and this is called aliasing, and it's standard signal processing. So, everything is correct. The thing is that, as I mentioned, we are discussing some reconstruction of deterministic function with a theory that it is prepared to show perfect reconstruction of this band-limited Gaussian process realizations. So the deterministic stuff is just for convenience, intuition, but formally the thing we are reconstructing should be randomly drawn from these prior Gaussian processes. So we end up here. In this video, we explained how to reconstruct these kind of signals from samples at every second. We can perfectly reconstruct the signals in the middle of the samples if we have no measurement noise, because with the help of a Wolfram Alpha website, we proved that the variance with infinite samples tended to 0 under no measurement noise. Because if I have some measurement noise, then these k samples plus the measurement noise in the diagonal will be, 1.1 or something like that. Then this explained variance will be multiplied by the inverse of 1.1, 0.9 something, and then we will still have some residual unexplained variance due to noisy samples. As I said, Shannon theorem applies to an infinite number of samples with no measurement noise, and it is a particular case of more general Gaussian process regression formula that apply to finite number of samples and can handle samples corrupted with measurement noise. But as Shannon theorem is an important one, it was interesting and worthwhile discussing all of this in this video. So we end now. Thanks for watching.